and I'm here to talk about the project I did last year, which I titled for this case, Photographing Human Dignity in the Americas. It's basically about the motorcycle journey I did in 2014 and 2015. I did not press start on this, sorry. Yeah, basically just a quick word about me. I was born in Montreal from parents that came here as refugees from Cambodia and from grandparents before that who were Chinese who had emigrated to Cambodia. And so that's my kind of ethnic background. And then previous to doing this trip, I had worked for the federal government in international relations, and I also worked in politics for a member of parliament, and did other things like worked for NGO as well in international development, as well as in a software development company. So that was kind of a bit of my background, but I was always drawn towards the arts. And so basically in 2014, in November, I left on a motorcycle that I got, which is a used motorcycle that was 10 years old. And I basically drove across the continent all the way to Ushuaia at the tip of South America. And I just wanted to share some pictures about that and also the process that I went through. So basically, I also made a book out of my experience, and I'm just going to share some pictures and the contrast and what they mean to me. So I stopped in Washington, D.C., where we have a photograph of Abraham Lincoln, which I guess is the president who abolished slavery. The next picture that I connected with that is the bus stop in Montgomery, Alabama, where Rosa Parks got arrested, which led to the civil rights movement, and just showing that through time there were still challenges and that it wasn't enough to just abolish slavery, that there was still a long way to go. Just very quickly, here we're in Guatemala, where I came across a group of people breakdancing, and I would come across this pretty much in every city that I visited across Latin America. So it really got me thinking about, again, the role of dance in a moment where through YouTube, people can, without even leaving their country, learn all the tricks and techniques and really integrate that and practice that wherever they are in the world. In San Pedro Sula here, I was invited to a folk dance of traditional dancing that quickly turned into another form of dancing that was called punta. I actually put the wrong picture, but in the other one, they're kind of shaking their ass. So it was very interesting to see the contrast through dance. This again is in San Pedro Sula in Honduras, and technically what the UN calls the highest murder capital rate in the world. And yet, through a mutual friend, I got invited to attend a theater show. It was basically a comedy theater show right downtown, and so it was great to be able to spend a Friday night in the city and just be able to attend and laugh with the locals. In Mexico, I took this little photograph, which means made with solidarity, because beyond where something is made, there's also the question of how it's being made. Again, back in Honduras, I had the chance to visit the factory of a toy company that a friend told me about that apparently made ethical toys with renewable, well-resourced wood, and also that paid fair wages to the employees and had all kinds of social programs. So I actually emailed the headquarters that was in the United States while I was there, and they kind of connected me with the manager of the location that gave me a tour. So that was interesting. This is a photo I took in Sao Paulo, where it was on October 12th, which in the U.S. is called Columbus Day, because it's the day that Christopher Columbus discovered the Americas. But you see here a manifestation from different indigenous groups that were basically just saying, actually it wasn't discovered, it was invaded and ransacked. And then I put in contrast a photo of Teotihuacan, which basically was built over 1,000 years before Christopher Columbus came to the Americas, and once apparently had up to 1,000 people living there, so in Mexico. So just to show that contrast in terms of who discovered what. And then here we have just the tallest tower in Latin America, the Torre Santiago, I think it's called, in Santiago, Chile. So just an interesting reflection on what we use as measures to measure progress in Latin America or anywhere else in the world. To contrast a bit, we have Machu Picchu that I got to visit as well, which is also quite tall in the mountains. So there's kind of some connection maybe in a very different way, but just wanted to share that really quickly. And then here in Brazil, I was under the big Jesus statue, so you can see everyone just kind of has a camera, just taking a picture of themselves or something else. So it's just interesting to see that. And then here in Panama, basically where protesters had blocked a bridge and the governor came over to try to negotiate with them, and people pulled out their cell phones to record what he said in order to make sure that he would be accountable. And then this is like the motorcycle part, the journey through Patagonia, getting to Ushuaia at the tip of the world, seeing people play hockey in the middle of June. And then really quickly, just want to mention about the fact that I also did 150 interviews with people that I met in 18 different countries. And the way I did it is I just walked around the city, and then when I came across people who seemed interesting, like let's say the girl here was reading poetry out loud in the middle of a park, so then I approached her and got her to basically take a picture of something meaningful to her in her life and share a story about the picture she took. In this case, she took the picture of her holding the hand of her friend and talking about the combativeness of women in Mexico. And I ended up doing this with people all along the trip, and so 150 people that you see here. And that was basically the project, and I got to do a first exhibit when I was in Buenos Aires to kind of just show my experience of traveling across the Americas, searching for the identity behind it that connected everyone, but also the everyday experiences that we can all relate to ultimately. So for me, it's a matter of dignity in the sense that the most interesting stories for me are the most authentic ones, when they're presented in a way where the person is really engaged in an equal way, kind of. And then I have an exhibit happening right now. If you're interested, it's going on until September 16th at the Cultural Center, Simon Bolivar Cultural Center. I have some flyers if you want afterwards, or and you can share on the page as well. I also have a book that I made about the trip. So if you're interested, you can come over. I have a few copies if you want to go through it as well. Yeah, this was the launch of the exhibit that happened 2 weeks ago. And in both cities, I had this little installation in the bottom where I invite people to, as they read the stories, to identify the story that they connect with the most, and then to identify, to connect it with a piece of rope to where they live in the city. So it's a way of mapping the connections between the experiences of ordinary Americans, but in the sense of the continent, and Montrealers. So you can check that out if you want. And I'm also doing a conference next Wednesday the 14th, where I'll be talking about the identity, the common identity of people living across the Americas, and also sharing anecdotes about my trip. Wednesday the 14th at 6 o'clock, I'll share the information with you. And that was just a map to locate yourself. It's near Place des Arts, basically. So this is the last slide. There's basically, those little Chinese cats. They're everywhere across Latin America. You cannot go in a store without having one. I just wanted to say thank you. The first one is in Mohawk, Niawin. And so, yeah. And if you want to check the project out, panamjimmy.com to have more information. Thank you very much.